Once upon a carpentry job long, long ago, sitting alone in a client's backyard, quietly eating lunch and watching and listening, I was shaken from my reverie by a soft but distinct thud. Out of the sky, something had fallen onto the hard ground. I looked beside me to find a lizard lying motionless. A green anole, if my pronunciation is correct, and that's disputable. A green anole had foundered from a tree branch overhead. It took one little hop and now sat stunned upon a rotten board. I was amused to be caught up in one of nature's moments, and I watched for several minutes as the motionless reptile did a most amazing thing. Right before my eyes, yet so imperceptibly, I might have convinced myself I was imagining, the lizard changed its color. It faded light green to gray to tan to brown to slowly blend and match the board on which it perched. Having done with this astounding transformation, it finally wandered off to do whatever else a lizard does. In the words of a French poet, the universe is made from nothing. Sometimes the nothingness shines through. I am like that character in Shel Silverstein's poem. I'm tired. Retirement is such a challenge. Just this week, I returned from 3 days kayaking down Black Creek in Green Cove Springs. 2 nights camping, sleeping in a hammock. We had to build fires, keep an eye on the stars, listen for wildlife. What a workout. I had to keep my phone off to avoid the daily dose of insanity as my friends texted of the morning news reports and nightmares. Florida politics. And Buzz Aldrin gets married for the 4th time at age 93. And David Crosby dies at 81. All of this in the short time I was away. It's exhausting. The weight of craziness and chaos sometimes wears on me until I want to run away from the circus and join home. Edward Abbey ran away from the circus of life. I think that's why he can write some of the things he did. He is writing from the perspective of an escape artist. This is a man who made his home as far from civilization as possible. A self-proclaimed agrarian anarchist. Like so many others in this century, Edward wrote, I found myself a displaced person shortly after birth. Poetic irony for a man born in a town called Home, Pennsylvania. I have been looking half my life, he wrote, for a place to take my stand. He ended up in the desert west and made his living as a fire lookout and a writer. He's been called an ecological philosopher, a defender of the wilderness, even Thoreau of the American West. he denies them all. Call me a ranger, he said, a fire lookout. I'm not a naturalist, he protested. I don't even know what one is. The only birds I can recognize without hesitation are the turkey vulture, the fried chicken, and the rosy-bottomed skinny dipper. His novels, The Monkey Wrench Gang and Hey Duke Lives, and his personal journals, Abbey's Road, The Journey Home, Desert Solitaire, and many others, all share a common theme, as he explained: the need to make sense of personal experience by exploring the connections and contradictions among wildness and wilderness, community and anarchy, between civilization and human freedom. Society is like a stew, he wrote. If you don't keep it stirred up, you get a lot of scum on top. Abbey understood that his main role in life was to stir that pot. He said in 1997, I love America because it is a confused, chaotic mess. And I hope we can keep it that way for at least another 1,000 years. The permissive society is the free society, the open society. Who gave us permission to live this way, he asked. Nobody did. We did. The best cure for the ills of democracy is more democracy. Much of his writing is about his newfound home. Quote, far out on the verge of things, the edge of the abyss. Abbey's wilderness was literal. The desert land outside of Moab, Utah, called the Arches National Monument. The primary purpose of my cross-country bike trip several years ago was to go to Arches National Monument because of his writings. This is the most beautiful place on earth, he writes. And then he adds, there are many such places. Every man and woman carries the image of the ideal place, the one true home. A houseboat in Kashmir, a view down Atlantic Boulevard in Brooklyn, a cabin on the shore of a blue lake in Spruce Country, a comfortable apartment high in the tender smog of Chicago, Paris, Tokyo, or Rome. Maybe you never literally go there. Abbey taught we need a refuge even though we may never need to go. We need the possibility of escape as surely as we need hope. As Florida needs the Everglades, Georgia the Okefenokee, New York has its Central Park, Louisiana has the Bayou. And it will be a gloomy world without our polar ice caps and our rainforests. I found a curious note in one of Abbey's books regarding Albert Einstein. Einstein, he said, thought the most mysterious aspect of the universe is what he called its comprehensibility. To Einstein, so much of the world's behavior and properties could be described with mathematical formulas. The wonder and mystery are that we can understand it, that we can make sense of nature's properties and motions. The world, according to Einstein, is meaningful as it responds to our manipulation. Abby said the atomic bomb and Hiroshima make a convincing argument for Einstein's observation. But Abby said this way of viewing life suffers from the deficit of a limited point of view. According to Abby, the lizard sunning itself on a stone could no doubt argue the same point, that time, space, sun, and earth exist to serve the lizard's interests. The lizard too must see the world as perfectly comprehensible. The lizard's metaphysical system seems as complete as Einstein's. To me, said Abby, the most mysterious thing about the universe is not its comprehensibility, but the fact that it exists. The world is permeated through and through by mysteries, by creatures like you and me and Einstein and the lizard. Remember Joseph Campbell and the power of myth. People say what we're all seeking is a meaning for life. I think what we're seeking, Campbell said, is an experience of being alive, to feel the rapture of being alive. There's no meaning, he asserted. What's the meaning of the universe? What's the meaning of a flea? It's just there. And your own meaning is that you're there. Some of us are Einsteins. Some of us are lizards. Some of us are wolves, or bobcats, or buzzards like Abby. We are Americans and Native Americans, Christians and Muslims, Jews and Unitarians, pacifists and militarists, and everyone in between. Buzz Aldrins and David Crosbys. What a chaotic mess to love. The desert is an awful place, says the man who worked for 7 seasons as a forest ranger in the desert. Don't go, he writes. Stay home. Read a good book. Mine, for example. He warns us of all kinds of dangers, rattlesnakes, sunstrokes, Winnebagos. You know, at the entrance to every underwater cave in Florida is a sign in bold red. Stop. Prevent your death. Go no further. Who do you suppose installed those signs?
Lawyers.
Cave divers. Cave divers. The Quran. Do you think that you shall enter the garden of bliss without such trials as came to those who passed away before you? Jesus went into the wilderness. Why? To be tested. We go, Abby said, because we are wild animals. Everyone needs a place they can go crazy in peace. Every scout troop, he wrote, deserves a forest to get lost, miserable, and starving in. But here's the catch as I see it. We don't find freedom in the wilderness. We don't become spiritual in the desert, because spirituality is not a thing we get or find. I was at Mardi Gras one weekend in New Orleans. Talk about wilderness. When the Reverend Kathleen Korb delivered a sermon titled Ode to Joy. You cannot consume spirituality, she said, like those beautiful rocks and minerals and other artifacts, petrified wood and onyx and arrowheads with which we fill our pockets and our pickups. Capture a piece of the mystery and take it home, as Abby said. And all we succeed in is a redistribution of geology. Freedom is a free gift in this mystery of life. We go into the wilderness for a time out, to prepare ourselves for the responsible exercise of that freedom. Eventually, you find out that the desert really isn't livable. Eventually, as Reverend Korb reminded us, the music stops, Mardi Gras is over, Lent begins, and even Einstein must face his own demons. Thomas Merton, in the middle of the 20th century, called Einstein a great prophet for the now dead age of liberalism. He came forth from the confusions of his day, said Merton, to produce for us all a little moment of clarity. And also, as an afterthought, he left us the atomic bomb. There is a little Einstein in all of us.